Hello and welcome to the 107 podcast with myself, Ash, and my co host, Jacob. We have an genuinely amazing. I've been so amped for weeks for Alex, aka Anita Driver, to come and join us to talk all things Formula One and Thick Rick. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining us. You're based in Chicago, so I appreciate you've joined at a different time. I guess where to start, because I've got so many places where I want to start,
There's
is
so many questions.
so many questions. Is firstly, how did you get into Formula One? Firstly,
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. So I grew up in Detroit. So like half my family worked in the car industry,
Nice.
and the ones that didn't, like my father was a journalist, but he was covering the car industry. So cars and motorsports were just kind of a way of life there. Um, I was super young. I was like an infant, but Formula One used to race in Detroit, and I know that I was too young to go, but my family went. We had like an F1 poster in the basement my entire childhood from that race. And yeah, I used to go to IndyCar races in Detroit. So yeah, I was just kind of always into cars and motorsports. And then I got into Top Gear, and I'd see all of
Nice.
the F1 drivers come on and drive their, I think it was a Suzuki.
Suzuki
And
Liana, yes.
yeah, so that got me some exposure to F1, and it started kind of slowly. At first it was I just watch a race or two a year, but eventually I got more and more into it. And then, I'm not going to lie, Drive to Survive uh, helped sort of solidify my fandom. It's the races are so much more interesting when you know all of the drivers, right? Like
Yeah.
not just their names, but who they are as a person and their personalities. So I felt like that kind of took things to another level for me when that show came out.
Is
Nice.
that maybe what explains the focus of your books, which is Danny Ricciardo as Netflix's like poster boy? Is that where that came from, or were you already a fan of Danny before Drive to Survive? Or
Well, I was a fan of him before. I do remember him coming on Top Gear and being a very good sport when somebody in the audience yelled out, "What's the back of Lewis's car look like?" And yeah, he was just always just such a big personality and such a nice guy. And back in his Red Bull days, also uh, achieving some really great results. But yeah, I think the reason that I started my, we'll call it my writing career, if that doesn't sound too
no, it's definitely a career.
braggadocious.
You've made at least two sales here, so
But the reason I started with him is just that some of the things that were happening in F1 at the time, like the idea just popped into my head.
hmm.
It wasn't necessarily that he was my favorite driver of all time or anything like that, but I just had this idea and it seemed like it had some legs and I went for it.
Yeah, I mean, can you kind of elaborate a little bit more? Like, what was a light bulb moment? What was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
There's something here.
So the idea came up during silly season a couple of years ago. So at this point, we knew that Daniel was not going to be returning to McLaren. And it seemed like all the other open seats on the grid were either getting filled or, Daniel, I guess, at least the rumor was that he didn't want to go to Haas and Alpine didn't want him. So it was really looking like he wasn't going to have a seat and he was just going to be out of F1. And I was reading on social media some fans just saying ridiculous stuff. They were obviously in denial, right? How could their favorite driver be out of F1? But people were saying crazy stuff like oh, maybe he's going to be the reserve driver at Mercedes and Lewis is having a bad season. Maybe he'll retire and then Daniel will be in that seat next season. They'll be fighting for the world championship and this is going to be like the best thing that's ever happened to him. And that all just was, it just seemed crazy because Lewis still had a year on his contract. He said he wasn't going to retire. So yeah, I'm reading these takes on Twitter and Reddit, and I'm thinking, this is like ridiculous wishful thinking. It's like fan fiction. And at first I thought you could write this ridiculous fan fiction where all of these things happen, where, Daniel goes to Mercedes and becomes a world champion. And then I thought, well, some spicy fan fiction about Daniel, that would be pretty funny. Like everyone seems to love him. Like I bet people would be into it. And I thought somebody should do that. And then I thought, well, surely I am somebody. I could do this.
I could be that.
But
somebody.
yeah, it was all a joke, really.
Yeah.
I thought
No,
it'd be funny too.
it's brilliant. So you finished the book. First question is how did you get the amazing Formula One references in there? It's like, what was your creative process, and who were the, what should we say, guinea pigs for the initial readings? That's like, please don't judge me.
Yeah, I can't imagine this is the sort of thing you went, Mum, Dad, I've written a book. Could you have a quick flick through?
Dad, as a motorsports journalist,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
to read.
It's not what you expected.
It's funny because I have that little like sticker on the cover that says "makes a great gift for mom." People always ask me if my mom likes the book, and I'm like, oh, I definitely don't want her to read it. But so the process really started with me coming up with a bunch of innuendos and basically dick jokes. Like I had a note on my phone where anytime like a good innuendo popped into my mind, I would just write it down. And to be perfectly honest, for a long time, this was just an idea I had. And I kept saying, I'm going to do it, and not doing it, because writing a book is actually kind of difficult. You have to put forth some effort, even for a book like mine. But really what made me sort of take the leap and actually start writing was I was messing around with an AI image generator, and I was just trying to familiarize myself with this new technology. And I thought, oh, I wonder if it could generate a romance novel style image for the cover of this book. So I asked it for a picture of Daniel shirtless standing on top of an F1 car. And the image it returned is what's on the cover of the book. And like,
nice.
It was so good. I couldn't not write the book. I mean, so I'd asked for him standing on the car, and
he just is the car.
Give me that. Yeah, it looks.
The nose cone is in a precarious position.
It's in an interesting position. Yeah, let's say that. Yeah.
So once I had that, I was like, I have to do this now. Like the world needs to see this.
The world needs to see this. Yeah, well, you're not wrong. I think that the cover itself is iconic, especially because I think it was during like Singapore Grand Prix weekend. Daniel was actually shown a copy of the book as well, which must have been a little bit of a surreal moment for you, knowing that that it had been seen by the person who it was written about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of in a panic that weekend because obviously there's some concern over whether, I don't want to say whether it's legal or not, because it's definitely legal to write fiction about public people, but that doesn't mean that they won't sue you anyway, right? So I kept telling myself as I was putting the book together that like, this isn't going to go anywhere. He'll never see it. Like, you don't need to really worry about that. Like maybe one or two people will buy it, but mostly I'm doing it for myself because it'll be funny and it'll be fun to like give as a gag gift to my friends. But then all of a sudden it kind of blew up, and it was like, oh, he might see it. Maybe he won't like it. Maybe he'll be upset about it. So in a sort of a panic, I sent copies of the book to some of my friends. Like, can you read this and tell me whether you think he'll hate it? And everyone told me that what I had done was fine. I mean, I think that like for people who haven't read the book, they might think it's a little iffy, right? Like it's an erotic novel about a real person without their permission. But anyone who's read it, I think, understands that it's really not very erotic. It's humor, and I don't even think the humor comes at his expense. So it's I felt like I was probably in the clear, but like to see him laugh at it, that was a huge relief.
I think because of who he seems to be, I think it's something that he was like, oh yeah, like, you know, it's just, it is a bit, it's satire, it's funny. It's, to me, it's nothing worse than you would see on like Saturday Night Live or something like that, like one of those skits. Nothing anywhere near as close as like some of the stuff that they do on there. So I think it was okay because it was in jest. And trust me, some of the stuff that I've seen written online about him and other drivers is outrageous. So I think you're good, honestly. And you're right. If you have read the book, I think you have a different perspective on it than initially hearing about it, for sure.
Like, I don't think anyone's getting turned on reading the book. I mean, I could be wrong, but you know, reading a line like
never know.
harder than a Pirelli C1 tire, like that's not very steamy. Like, I think that people are laughing, not getting turned on.
I think the pushes his buttons or pushes her buttons like a Sky Q or Sky Glass customer, for me, was just, that was the hook for me. I was like, yeah, this is brilliant. This is so good. This is very clearly meant to be completely stupid, but obviously a fantastic piece of writing, of course.
Thank you.
Of course. And so obviously you wrote the first one, which I do have a copy of here as well. You wrote the first one, and then you decided to write a second, which I haven't actually read, so I do apologize. But Ash, you've read it, right? You've read the whole thing?
I've read The Pole Sitter.
I tried a little bit harder on that book. Like, I feel a little bad admitting this to everyone who spent their hard-earned money on the first one, but I didn't really expect any sort of sales traction with that book. Like, I really thought that maybe I'd sell 1 or 2 copies and that'd be it. So when I was proofreading it, I actually noticed a inconsistency in the plot. And I thought, who cares? Nobody's going to read this. I didn't fix it. And yeah, so I tried a little bit harder on the second one, because by that point, the first one had done really well. So I thought, okay, well, people are actually going to read this. So yeah, I put a little more effort into it. And at least some people think it shows. I've had some reviews say that it's better than the first one, which... I'll
it's always nice to hear.
To the readers to decide, but yeah, definitely put a little more effort into it.
Do you know how the book blew up? Like, it's not something you go on Amazon for. And have you had any weird requests, criticism, emails, or anything regarding
other than our emails, apparently?
Yeah, I've definitely had some weird stuff. One thing that keeps happening that I don't understand is I get these reviews that, like, the text, when you read it, they're glowing. People saying stuff like, this is the funniest thing I've ever read. And then they give me 2 stars. And I don't understand it. Like, what more do you want?
You can't please everyone.
Yeah. But I get a lot of really nice emails. Somebody sent me a very strange picture of themselves holding the book.
Good. Don't explain that any further. I already have something in my head.
But yeah, it's the response has been largely positive. There are definitely some people who are critical of it. I saw a TikTok that a woman made where she said something like, I miss my life before I knew that this book existed. Like,
you should. Have you read the comments on the reel that we made? Have you read the comments?
I read some of them. Yeah,
some of them are outrageous. Some of them are really like funny, but some of them are just like, oh, I wish I could bleach my brain and stuff like that. Like, it's just, oh my god.
I think those are people who don't understand that the book is not actually.
Like you said, they've not read the book, right? So they don't get it. So I don't think that helps. Just seeing a random reel out of context must be very
Sure.
confusing for them anyway. But yeah, no, I also hope you don't mind. We did a couple of random bits and pieces like that. I guess it's free promotion, but I hope you don't
Yeah,
mind
not
us
at
just
all.
doing random bits and pieces. I have a couple of others as well, like ready to go. So I'll launch those like as we're releasing this episode as well.
Perfect.
So yeah. So I wanted to ask as well, is there any particular like other driver or team that you'd like to write about other than Daniel? I think you've got another one about Charles, another book about Charles. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's really hard not to just constantly dunk on Ferrari. Like, so I have Charles Leclerc and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad Monaco Grand Prix. And it kind of chronicles year by year how something always goes terribly wrong for him at that race, which is really sad because it's his home race. It's the one you want to win, right? Uh, then I also just a few weeks ago put out a book called "Oh, the Races You'll Blow," and it's about how I think it's a mistake that Lewis Hamilton signed with Ferrari, and it
Okay.
goes through their history of signing world champions, and then after a couple of years of not much success, they kick those drivers to the curb. And when so I obviously when the news broke that he had signed with Ferrari, like I immediately started working on that book.
Good. Yeah.
I actually had another book that was sort of like clowning on Ferrari for being incompetent that I was working on at that moment that I have sort of put on the shelf because I wanted to work on the book about Lewis. But yeah, at some point I'll probably finish that one. But uh, yeah, I probably should pick on some other teams too, right? They can't just always be dogging on Ferrari.
I think you made a lot of Mazepin jokes in the first book
Yeah.
at the very least. I'm sure there's something in there with Haas. Um somewhere anyway. But like even I did like the so in the book, if you haven't read it, as you go through there are lots of like asterisks and stuff like that. Is it asterisks? I didn't do very well at English in school. But so like there are loads of like essentially little messages, and my personal favorite was a neck haiku as well, which just for the record I think you should just release as like a poster because that's brilliant. It was so good. I'm trying to see if I can find it as well. But like, if you're not watching this and you're listening, so in one chapter there are quite literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate. Not to give away it for free, but there's 5 separate references during a chapter as well, which is just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so that was just a way to inject a little bit more humor into
Yeah,
the story. I will explain the neck thing a little bit because I don't know. I don't know if in Europe you get the same experience that we do here in the U.S. But like when there's a race in the U.S., drivers are always doing a little bit of local media. Of course, because of Daniel's popularity, he's probably the one doing the most. And the interviews are always the same because you've got to remember that the U.S. is not Formula One crazy. When they go on like a late night TV show, most of the people watching probably don't know who these drivers are. They don't know anything about Formula One. So all of the interviews are virtually the same. They say something like so a lot of people don't realize this, but driving in Formula One is actually very physical. Like you guys are athletes. It's not like me driving to work every morning in my car.
yeah.
And Daniel will always say like, oh no, like we have to take our fitness very seriously, especially the neck. And they always talk about neck strength. So that's why I added so much about that. But quite frankly, like as I was going, like the more neck stuff I added, the funnier it became to me.
I think your greatest success and greatest challenge was if you were to write about Lando Norris.
Oh yeah.
He's the one that seems to, I think, have a lot where you can experiment, but seems to have a most rabid fan base.
I don't know. I feel like Charles's fan base, they can get a bit like that as well, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to write something about Lando. Um, I definitely don't try to think about like what's going to be popular. I mean, I wrote a book about Lance Stroll. You know, uh, I think that speaks for itself. I don't need to explain that
One
one
of
to anybody.
three people.
Yeah, people actually like it though. Dax Shepard said that that was his favorite of my books, and then I wrote the Zen poetry book, Zen and the Art of Formula Racing, and that was a book that I knew it was funny to me, but I didn't think anybody else would think it was funny. I thought people would just think it was weird, but the response has actually been really good. So yeah, I definitely am thinking about what is going to be funny to me as opposed to like what's a good opportunity and like what are people going to like. I think that actually helps me be more successful.
Nice. Um, Moving away from the books now. Um, like you said, you grew up a motorsport fan, kind of motorsports in the blood. You've known Formula One pre-Drive to Survive and post-Drive to Survive. What are your thoughts on A, how Drive to Survive has exposed the sport to the US, but also the criticism it's got in being creating these fake narratives? And like you said, it shows the drivers, but sometimes it doesn't show the drivers in the realistic or most authentic light.
Yeah, I guess not having too many friends who are Formula One fans here in the US, beggars won't be choosers, right? Like whatever will get people into it. Because, for a while, it just felt like I was watching races and had no one to even talk to about it. And that wasn't fun. So I'm not going to uh, sit here and be like, well, you're only into Formula One because of Drive to Survive. You're not a real fan or whatever. I'm just excited that there's actually F1 fans in the US now. But yeah, I think that when you look at the drama that they sometimes sort of gin up between the drivers, I think you have to know that you're watching a documentary and that they're trying to make it entertaining and they have a perspective that they're trying to convey. And that's true of like any documentary. So I think especially in a world with AI generated video and stuff like that, like we all need to be a little skeptical, right? So yeah, you see Lando and Carlos acting like mortal enemies on Drive to Survive. Like, take that with a little grain of salt. But there is a grain of truth to it, right? Like, these are fierce competitors and they're
True, yeah.
competing against each other. They're friends, but there is intense competition there.
Yeah, I think there was a shot of Lando after his driver interview in Australia, which happened like a couple of weeks ago, or a week or so ago, and you could see Lando was just so like deflated and disappointed at like where he'd obviously like come again, because it's one of the only times. Let's be honest, it's one of the only times that Max is probably not going to finish a race or not win a race this season. So
Yeah.
it's another chance blown, like always the bridesmaid, never the bride type thing. So it will absolutely be eating every single one of these drivers up. Like I think the last time he won a race was when Ash and I were in Austria watching the race. That was the last time he won. So Ferrari, if you want to send us tickets, let us know. But like it's been such a long time for so many of these drivers since they've stood on that top spot that like you're right that some of these Drive to Survive storylines will ring true to a certain extent.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that these drivers seem to have an ability to maintain a friendship while having this cutthroat competition. Like on the
Yeah.
track, they just they're mortal enemies, but then they can play paddle after.
What changes would you like to see come to the sport? Kind of thing. Now that it's grown massively, now there's a Verstappen domination. Is there something you'd see? Like, would you like to see more teams on the grid, Andretti or something like that? Or
Yeah, I'd definitely like to see more teams on the grid, especially like you look at drivers like Liam Lawson and Ollie Behrman, and there aren't seats. So I think that right there tells you that there should be some at least one more team, a couple more opportunities for young drivers to prove themselves. One thing that I'd love to see that I know will never happen is let's call it every 4 years. We'll call it the World Cup or something. I'd love to see all the drivers line up in the same car.
Like drop down to
for
F2 for the day
race.
type thing.
Yeah, I think that would be really, really interesting to see, but we will absolutely never see that.
It's a good idea, though. Honestly,
They
I
did
think
it years ago, didn't they? With Senna and Lauda in Mercedes or something like that, and Senna won. But yeah, you're right. Too many variables for that to happen.
there's probably so many contracts and clauses and bits and pieces that it's just highly unlikely to happen. But it would be very fun and very entertaining for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting as somebody who grew up watching IndyCar. You kind of see the merits of both types of series, right? Like the engineering challenge of Formula One and the development race throughout the season is really compelling. But it's also kind of neat to see a bunch of drivers who are essentially in equal machinery and really letting the best drivers come out on top.
I've always said Formula One is a circus, and occasionally they go racing. There's so much drama off track. In your time, what has been some of the stories? Maybe is it like even Christian Horner or Spygate or Abu Dhabi, where you're like, they've got to turn this into you can write a book about this.
Yeah, I mean, a big one, I guess, is what's going on with Felipe Massa, right? Like he's how many years ago was that, and he's still filing lawsuits over it. So
2008, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big one. The Christian Horner one, we'll see how that plays out, but I think it has the potential to really be a big one. Especially, I mean, I don't want to traffic too much in unsubstantiated rumors, but like if the way this ends is Max leaving Red Bull and Adrian Newey leaving Red Bull and Helmut Marko leaving Red Bull, I mean that's gonna it'll make a good movie one day.
Yeah.
I would say it makes a good book as well. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I think with that Red Bull thing, like you said, there's so many, and it's the same for most of the drama, like up and down the pit lane. Like we never truly know what truth there is in so many different bits and pieces. Like even all the way to like even like isolated incidents, like for example, Fernando Alonso testing McLaren somehow maybe electrocuted, maybe not. Like there's so many things that we'll just never ever know. So that also, I guess, may be difficult, but maybe also means that it's easier to fill in the gaps. Maybe I don't know. I'm not a writer, so I've got no idea. But does that sound about right? Or
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of secrecy with these teams, right? And I'm sure that there are a lot of untold stories that we don't know about. It's like the truth is sometimes stranger than fiction, right? So we've got certain, I'm using this term loosely, but journalists who, write clickbait articles that are just full of fabrications and stuff like that. And I imagine that there are plenty of stories out there that are even crazier than the things that these people are making up.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, I think Lewis mentioned he's going to release a book that answers a few questions about him and Rosberg's relationship. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. What's your favorite track? And as a team principal of the current grid, who would be your two-driver team? Remember, you're a team principal, so you got to manage them.
Favorite track? Um,
And you can have one that's not in the calendar.
Yeah, if you just said like Portimao or something like that, that's allowed.
I've always been a big fan of Suzuka. It just seems like it makes for great racing, but also the atmosphere there is incredible with the fans making their own costumes and stuff. It feels like everyone's always excited to go there. Okay, so I feel like if I'm gonna pick my drivers, it almost feels like cheating to pick Max, right?
We'll
Like
allow it, but
who
if
wouldn't?
Max didn't exist,
Yeah. Okay. So without Max, geez, I don't know. Because like one thing you have to think about is the future, right? Like maybe you
True.
pick Oscar because you see where he's going, as opposed to like where he's at right now. But I don't know. I think this might be wishful thinking on my part, but I might go with Carlos. I feel like everywhere he's been, he's sort of been seen as the second driver. Even at McLaren when Lando was super young, it was like, oh well, Carlos is beating him now, but Lando's our driver of the future. So I want to see him do really well. So I might pick him. And let's see, who would I? Maybe even Lando. Bring back Carlando. And I mean, he's got to win a race at some point, right?
Please, for the love of God, please.
Well, actually, following on that, we've got the Horner situation. We've got Lewis to Ferrari. Like you said, Max could leave, Adrian could leave. Do you have any predictions for the season? Like a new race winner, someone leaving, someone coming in? So yeah, I have a fair feeling that's going to happen.
Like a hot take, huh?
Yeah, a little bit of a hot take. Yeah, I mean, look, we've had Lewis to Ferrari. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, how much more mad can it get, right?
how much hotter can it get, right? So there's.
Well, I mean, if I really wanted to give a hot take, I'd say Logan Sargent's going to beat Alex Albon over the season. But yeah, I'm not sure I actually see that
Sorry, Logan.
happening. Going back to what I was saying before about wanting to see Carlos do well, not that I don't like Charles, but I think it would be pretty interesting to see Carlos beat Charles in the drivers' championship, and maybe call into question whether Ferrari made the right call there.
I mean, so far it looks like they haven't. So
It's so early.
yeah,
True.
yeah, still early. We only had 3 races.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the races he wasn't even there. So
Yeah.
there is that, to be fair. So obviously you've been a fan for a long time. Is there a particular team that you're a big fan of? I can see a McLaren poster in the background. Is that just because you like the art style, or are you actually a McLaren fan? Like, where do your loyalties lie?
I'll be honest, I don't really have any long-term loyalties. I think for me, I like a good underdog story. And, like in 2021, I was rooting for Max, right? Like Lewis had won so many championships, it was just a little bit boring, right? Well, now Max is so dominant, I don't root for Max. So I find myself constantly sort of switching my loyalties, I guess. So yeah, I'm always pulling for drivers and teams who are not at the front of the grid, but hoping to see them do well anyway.
Fair play. Outside of Kota, and maybe I think your answer would have been in Japan. What race would you like to visit?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'd love to go to Japan. I also think that Spa would be really cool. I mean, just
Yes.
like, sit in the
What
forest and
what a lovely track. Oh
Oh,
yes.
you touched a nerve there with Jacob.
you're not a Spa fan?
I love Spa. Spa's great. Just don't go the 1 year where the race was cancelled but was actually there, and then sit in the Ardennes forest for essentially the entire day, being rained on without a proper winter jacket, because they let you in but they wouldn't let you back out because there were so many people there trying to get in with fake tickets. So you had to buy an umbrella for about $50, which was shit, and then shiver in the rain for 7 or 8 hours waiting for Formula One cars to come around, and then they go around twice, and then you have to wait another 2 hours, and then they go around once, and then that was the end of it.
Isn't that the race? Like, didn't you get to witness Nikita Mazepin setting
I
the
did.
fastest lap?
That is the one
That's
thing.
history.
That's the one thing. I was there the day Nikita Mazepin had the fastest lap award. I was there. I think.
And quite frankly, I'm surprised that the umbrella was only $50.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah. Maybe I'm getting my conversion right. It was. Wait, no. How much was it? I think it was £40. So it was like that's about 50-60 euros. So probably about $60. I think maybe something around that. But even then, like, yeah, it was a horrible day. Like, honestly, like,
because I think
yeah.
Verstappen hat at Coda was like $170.
Wow.
Does not surprise me at all. Like, even at the British Grand Prix last year, I remember seeing like they had like limited edition like Lando Norris cap or whatever for that weekend, and I think online it was like the equivalent of like $50, but then there in person it was like 65 or something like that. There's always like what I would call Grand Prix tax whenever you do go to any of these races. Always add 15% to the value. Honestly, it's expensive being a Formula One fan. I mean, have you been to any races? I would recommend Spa on a dry weekend, but have you been to any races at all?
I've been to Coda a few times.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, you did mention that. I do apologize. I sort of meant like any others other than Kota. Have you been any flyaways? Like Ash and I are going to a different race at some point soon as well. So yeah, any flyaways at all?
I haven't. I've thought about it, but if I fly all the way to Europe, I don't know that I want to spend 3 days at a track, right? Like, I mean, I know it would be fun, but I'm not sure. Like, if I go to Italy, that I want to spend all of my time, just within the confines of the track.
I reckon you could get away
Maybe
with a
one day.
Sunday. I reckon you could just get away with like a 1 day Sunday. Like, I think when I went to Silverstone last year, I only turned up for the Friday and the Sunday. I didn't go. No, the Saturday and the Sunday. I didn't go on the Friday because I was there on the Thursday as well. So I skipped out on the Friday because it was only free practice. You don't see a lot during free practice. It's not great viewing, you know?
Right. Yeah, I have thought about going to Monaco for qualifying. Just do that one day. The race is generally not that exciting.
No, it's
So
not.
yeah, just maybe I would stay in France and take the train in,
Yeah.
catch qualifying, and leave. The one thing I don't know, and I don't know if you guys have any insight into this, but I have a feeling that, like, as a fan, you sort of romanticize Monaco, like it's going to be this amazing time, and then you get there, and I'm just imagining that everything is reserved for private parties. Like you won't
Probably.
even be able to have dinner somewhere unless you have an invitation from like Ferrari or something, right? Like peasants like me will not have a good time. But I don't know.
I'm not too sure. I don't. Do you know anyone, Ash, that's been to Monaco?
I think what most people do is they go to Nice, and
Yeah.
then go to Monaco for the race, and then just go back to Nice once all the Formula One shenanigans are over. So
Sure.
yeah, unless you want to drop $10,000 on a yacht party.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, it's yeah, you like you said, it's like nowhere in Monaco will probably be open to the peasants like us.
The best.
Yeah.
Just final question for me. I'm not into Indy. I was only into it very briefly when Fernando was there. Is there any difference between atmosphere, driver kind of personalities and representation from Formula One? So you've been to COTA, I assume you've been to like the Indy races. Is there any differences, any similarities? Or...
It's a little bit more chill, I guess I would say. There's like when you go to an F1 race, it just the amount of money being thrown around there is kind of
It's
just thrown in your
outrageous.
face the whole time. And IndyCar doesn't feel like that at all. Uh, it feels more relaxed. I think you get more people who are big fans instead of people that are there because it's like some star-studded event that they can post on Instagram or whatever. And yeah, I think it's interesting because in some ways it feels like the stakes are a little bit lower, right? Which makes it a little less exciting, but it's also just a more relaxed and fun environment. So it's just different.
Interesting. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. It seems like the F1, like you said, you've got the grid walks with the celebrities there, and they weirdly, I don't know why they do this, but they cut to the celebrities during the race.
We
I'm like,
don't want to see
there's a race on."
Shakira. We don't care.
Yeah.
Like we
My
all know she's not a fan of Ferrari. She's just there because she's been given a free ticket. Like she's not there because she wants to be, type thing. Like yeah.
I can't remember who said this, if it was Martin Brundle, but years ago during a race, the camera cut to Christina Aguilera, I think it was, and if if it was Martin Brundle, I'm not sure, but
It was
whoever it was, they
David
said,
Coulthard, yeah.
was
I
it
know
okay?
exactly what
Yeah,
you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
he said something like, and there's Christina Aguilera feigning an interest in Formula One. Yeah, that was hilarious.
Cool. That's all for me. I don't know if you have any questions left, Jacob.
No, not really. I didn't have any serious bits or pieces really, to be completely honest. I think
cool.
that the only thing the only other thing that I had was just sort of around the going backwards to the books and stuff like that. I presume there's more on the way. I know you said you've shelved one for now, which was about, Ferrari not doing particularly well. But are there any other hints that you can give us as to different ideas that you've got in the pipeline, or are you going to try and keep those close to your chest?
Well, I don't think it's a secret that I've got 67 more books to write about Daniel.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know if I'm going to write any more of those. Maybe. We'll see. It kind of feels like the joke's been done. So, yeah.
I think the lawyers might come knocking after like book 50.
35, yeah. All right,
Yeah.
well, you've had your fun.
Well, one thing that did occur to me is I have this idea for a ridiculous book about him. I figure if I'm going to write 69, by the end, I'm really going to be reaching for plot lines, right? Because I've done so many. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to get ridiculous with it. Like he's going to have to go to space and stuff like that. So I decided that book 69 is going to be called Space Race to Planet Love. Thick Rick goes full throttle on Uranus.
Nice.
So nice. I kind of really want to write that book. And I figure like with Star Wars, they made those movies out of order.
True.
You know?
True.
Maybe I can do the same thing and just skip right to book 69.
I think you'd be fine. I think that's absolutely allowed. I wouldn't worry about it.
Just have people scrambling for like, where's book 17? Where's book 34?
Like, oh, that's actually a very rare book. It's very valuable. Maybe I'll make one copy of it and auction it off.
It's a good idea, honestly.
It's like that Wu-Tang did that with one of their albums, right?
Yeah, there's like a one-off copy that like only one person ever has, and it's outrageous.
Was bought by that Martin Shkreli, the
yeah, something like that. Yeah, ridiculous.
Do we know if he's a Formula One fan?
Yeah, do we know? Do we know if he's interested in a book?
I don't know. If you tell something, it's only one in the world, they'll throw money at you.
Pretty much, yeah. I didn't really have any other questions. I did have a couple of suggestions that may or may not inspire. I had one idea, which was obviously you joked about Lando being I think a 17-year-old Twitch streamer in the first book. Yeah. And so he obviously talks about not knowing much about women, my idea was that obviously he has no idea, so he tries to find out by like contacting the other drivers and trying to figure it out, and going to Sebastian because he knows about bees, but he doesn't know that much about birds. So they're trying to find some sort of thing there. That was the only silly idea that I had. Just purely off the top of my head. But I thought there might have been something there. I've been thinking about it like the day. I was like, should I bother saying it? Yeah, why not? Screw it. But yeah, feel free to use
You're
that,
not
I
going to write
guess.
it, Jacob. So.
I'm not going to write it. No, like I said, I struggle with English in school, so I'm going to be horrible at writing this stuff. But yeah, that was the only.
I'm not sure I'm good at it.
Well, I mean, you've sold more copies of books than we ever have, so there is that. So
you know what's really funny is my dad, the journalist, wrote a book in his retirement, and it took him like 7 years. It's a very well researched book, and I'm the best-selling author of the family, which makes me feel a little bad.
What is it? If you buy 30,000, you'll be a New York Times bestseller. Is that the number?
Something like that. Yeah.
There you go.
So...
Okay, Daniel can afford it, right? So how can people buy the book, and how can they follow you on any socials that you have?
Yeah, so the book is for sale on Amazon. Just search for Anita Driver on your local Amazon website and you'll find it. And yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Real Anita Driver.
Nice. Give him a follow. Send him some ideas and some constructive criticism with the 5 stars.
Yes, and please stop writing me reviews about how great the book was and only give me 2 stars.
God, there's a rookie numbers. We're going to pump those numbers up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think we're all going to be patiently waiting for the next books, and I definitely do need to read the second one, but in the Thick Rick series, of course. But I just wanted to also say thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, really appreciate you giving up your time to come and chat to 2 idiots with a podcast. So thank you. But I think we can probably wrap things up there. So yeah, but yeah, like I said, thank you very much for joining us, and yeah, we will be back at some point soon over the next couple of weeks. We've got Japan coming up. Any predictions for Japan? Anything from you?
I'm going to say that Daniel Ricciardo is going to have a big bounce back race. He's going to find his form, and he'll actually out-qualify Yuki.
Let's see. Fingers crossed.
Yuki's home race. Wow. That is a hot take.
Show him how it's done. There we go. There's your hot take. Yeah. Has to show him how it's done. Yeah. Awesome.
I need him to stay in F1 for book sales.
Daniel, please. Awesome. Yeah, no, like I said, thank you very much for listening, everyone. And we will be back over the next couple of weeks with Japan and so on. And yeah, speak to you guys in the next one.
See you soon.